Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of IK NHL Daily Talk. And before I get too far into this, say what's up, Iacob.
And we just started, but he said before I get too far into this. Nah, welcome back, everybody. Hope everyone has a great day, is having a great day. I know I am having a great day. I got a game tonight, so I'm really looking forward to that. I know Kyle's having a great day too, even though he's
Debatable.
probably a little sick right now. So, if he starts
hmm
coughing or, something, maybe because he told me his throat hurts a little bit. So, yeah.
But yeah, I'll chug along and I'll make this episode for y'all because we're trying to do as much as we can, and obviously being sick is no excuse not to be here. So on that note, Jakob, do you want to get into the few news points we have and then go from there?
I'm down. I'm ready for whenever, to be honest. I'm just waiting for your cue to go.
All right, well, let's go with our first news topic, which I will pull up these standings afterwards to show you guys, and we will have a conversation about every team. But the first news topic of the day, which involves a team that clinched, and that is the Carolina Hurricanes. And Puck Empire says, Hurricane Watch. For the eighth straight season, the Carolina Hurricanes have a chance to contend for Lord Stanley in the NHL playoffs, and that is in fact true. And honestly, I'm kind of glad they're in. Well, I don't know if I'd say glad, but it's not a surprise. And this Carolina Hurricanes team on paper is still really solid. And yeah, them making it is no surprise to me. And what do you think, Jakob, regarding the Hurricanes having clinched?
You see, this is their eighth straight season, and we've been talking about them having a great team. We've been talking about this, but it reminded me of like a Toronto Maple Leafs where they're good during the regular season and then absolutely choke in the playoffs. Like
hmm
I know they're second and all that. I know that, but if you look at like back years where Carolina, everyone was saying, "Oh, Carolina has a chance." Carolina has this is the year. They're kind of they kind of have been folding under pressure, like
hmm
it hasn't been, they've been saying all this stuff about Carolina and how, they thought that this is going to be their year. And then you lose and they say next year is going to be our year. They have the players. They've had the players every single year. They're one of those teams that are so inconsistent in the playoffs that people are starting to doubt whether or not they, actually have a team like they say or not.
That's true. And by the way, Jakob, I mean, another stat that comes to mind when we're talking about the Hurricanes is obviously throughout all these years, they have not made the Stanley Cup final once. And that includes three, conference final losses. And in those three conference finals appearances that they have made, they have won one hockey game. And obviously, if you want to win and be a contender for Lord Stanley, you cannot go that far and not win any hockey games. And that's why the Carolina Hurricanes haven't, won a Stanley Cup. And for the most part, their roster on paper this season is pretty much the same as the last few years. So I don't know what to say, but I do think goaltending is going to be a problem for this Canes team down the stretch and into the playoffs.
That is for sure. I think so for sure because you've seen, Frederick Anderson, he does good, but know, it's been different this year, so we'll see.
On top of that, Frederick Anderson is another year older, and obviously, he's not getting any younger, and he's nearing I think he's in his late 30s now, so obviously not the same goalie. Then Kochetkov just haven't have a good year, and Brandon Bussey is still inexperienced, and obviously he's a solid goaltender, but since the deadline, he also has not been the same. And yeah, I mean, we'll see what the Hurricanes can do, but maybe we'll circle back and we'll talk about these teams at the end. But before we circle back, Jakob, you want to say the second team that clinched on the day?
Yeah, and the second team that clinched on the day has actually come as no surprise. I know they were gonna clinch it forever, but according to Puck Empire, into the Wild, the Minnesota Wild have clinched a spot in the playoffs for the 12th time in the last 14 seasons. And
Wow.
to me, it doesn't come as a surprise, to be honest, because you know that Atlantic, I think they're in the Atlantic, right? No, they're in the Central.
Atlantic,
That's
where are you coming
my
from,
bad. I'm
Jakob?
I'm sleeping, guys. My bad. I don't know why I was thinking Atlantic, but that Central, is it's pretty tough. It's pretty like one-sided, and almost a lot of the teams are already up there. Like look at Colorado, Dallas, Minnesota. All three teams have already made, and all of them almost have 100 points. But Minnesota is no surprise to me. Minnesota has arguably one of the best teams in the NHL.
hmm
And with the guys that they have, including Quinn Hughes, Kirill Kaprizov, even look at their goaltender situation, and we spoke about this goaltending situation, prior to the Olympics, and it's still shows that they're one of the top. They're up there for the best duo goalies. So
Hmm.
it doesn't come as a surprise to me, and I would have been shocked if Minnesota missed it. But truth be told, you know I never suspected a thing about them. I always knew that they were going to clinch it no matter what.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that this Wild team has clinched either. And yeah, no, I mean, good for them. And obviously, Kaprizov, another guy you didn't list, but Boldy on D, they have Faber too. They still have Jonas Brodin, Jared Spurgeon. I mean, this team is loaded and mostly in the back end and in their goaltending. But I don't know. This team's going to have a tough run in the playoffs because in round one, unless the standings change, of course, they are going to have to play Dallas to be able to advance to the second round. And we know the history between these two teams, and historically, especially in recent history, the Wild have not had good fortune against the Stars. And I don't know. Do you think that the Wild have a chance to beat the Dallas Stars in a playoff series?
I think so. I think so. Truth be told, I think there is a chance. I think, if they really step up their game, and yeah, you look at history, but history is in the past.
Hmm.
You're focused on this game, and obviously, circumstances are different now. Both teams are, much better, so it's definitely going to be a fight. And you know, I definitely do see Dallas playing Minnesota, but I could see this game going to either game 6 or game 7, depending on, who wants it more, and how this team. But don't be surprised if this game goes to game 7, because it will be tight, until the end.
Absolutely. I think these two teams at the bare minimum go six because both are that good. And I mean, to be honest, obviously after adding Quinn Hughes and on top of Dallas, Dallas's defensive depth has been questioned in the past, especially like their forward depth's also been questioned, and we'll see. But I do think that the Wild have a chance to win this playoff series, and yeah, I'm excited to see what they can do. But we'll circle back at the end. But yeah, let's talk about a couple teams that have been eliminated from playoff contention, and I will say the first, which sorry, Connor Bedard, but the Blackhawks are, officially, well, I guess they were officially the third team eliminated after their loss last night to the Edmonton Oilers, which for my Oilers, that was great. And our first time we have won five straight this season, so I'm happy. But to be honest, I don't feel bad for this Blackhawks team. They have a lot of young guys, and I heard on the broadcast last night that their center core is like two 22-year-olds, a 21-year-old, and a 19-year-old. So I do think Chicago's got a very bright future. They have a very young roster, and yeah, this team going down the line is going to be very good. And I do think that the Chicago team will win a cup, but I will say that I do think we are still a few years away from them being a serious contender. But maybe as soon as next season, if they add some help for Bedard, I think we could see them possibly make the playoffs. But no, obviously not a surprise, and I don't feel bad for this team. What do you think, Jakob?
Me neither. I don't feel bad. Chicago. Sorry, I read Gavin McKenna. I almost said Gavin McKenna, but no, Chicago, they have a young core. I agree with Kyle. They have a super young team, and they're building for the future. And the future is bright for them. And not many teams can actually say that their future is bright. But Chicago's, despite their last few seasons, they have a bright future. They have, maybe it's a strategic thing that they're trying to do. But I don't know what there is. But it's one of those things where you just let time figure it out itself. You just allow it to be in the moment. And not maybe not this year, but maybe next year Connor Bedard will be able to face what it feels like to be in the playoffs and face some playoff magic. But unfortunately for Connor Bedard, this year it won't be the year.
Well, I mean, really, no one thought it would be their year. We all know that this team is still a couple pieces away from being a true contender, but I do think they have something, in their goaltending. And Spencer Knight, I think he could possibly be the answer and is a very solid goaltender. They obviously have, down the line that top end talent in Bedard and a Frondell at center, and then you have some good supporting pieces. And I do think this team will be very good, and yeah, I think their time will come. But obviously, Jakob, with them being 31st in the league currently, unless they do rise up the standings, they're currently guaranteed a top four pick as well, which, as if they need any more help.
Yeah, they got more help. So.
Yeah, so I mean, adding another top three pick to that organization, this team is going to be nasty. And the top three, by the way, in this draft, they're obviously McKenna, then you have Stenberg, and you have Keaton Verhoff, who's a very good defender. So yeah, this draft class is absolutely nasty. But you want to introduce the last team, Jakob, that obviously got eliminated, and obviously this was a would have been a bit surprising going into the year.
Yeah, obviously, if you told me at the start of the year that the Toronto Maple Leafs were going to miss the playoffs this year, I would have looked at you and thought you were crazy. But unfortunately for this one, the Toronto Maple Leafs have been eliminated. And it says, Poppy, chill. The Toronto Maple Leafs, the active holders of the longest playoff streak in the NHL, will not participate in the NHL playoffs for the first time since 2016. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's kind of rough. But honestly, to be honest, at first, when I first got told, that Maple Leafs were struggling, I didn't question it. I was like, okay, maybe, they're just having it down here. But then seeing Austin Matthews go down with injury, Marner, not being there, William Nylander not having the best, and then just everyone overall just not being there for them. And yeah, although, as you guys can see, they finished 25th in the league. Still, it's the East, and the East is tight. And unfortunately for Toronto, you just have no way of, competing with anybody at this moment. And you can't really be reliable when Austin Matthews gets absolutely killed, and nobody until you wait until the next game to fight, Gudas. You have to fight them in the men. So, there wasn't no, and obviously we saw that they fired their general manager yesterday. So maybe something is to come in the maybe next year for Toronto, but unfortunately next year is your year. Trust me.
Next year is their year. I love it, but I'm gonna be honest. No, next year is not your year, Leafs fans. But yeah, no, I mean, obviously, seeing what we've seen throughout the year, this doesn't really come as a huge surprise. And this Leafs team right now does not look like they're in any shape to win. And obviously, you sold at the deadline. You got some pieces, and I mean, better luck next year. But I have a question for you, Jakob, and I have my own thoughts on this. But come the end of Austin Matthews' contract, do you think he will want to remain a Toronto Maple Leaf?
I don't know. I don't know, to be honest. He has had a lot of, he's, individual success he's had at Toronto, but looking down the year, this is a question of, will this team be any good? And truth be told, I don't think so. I think Austin Matthews will want to leave. Although the only problem with that is that, you know, they're going to have to find a way to pay him.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I'm worried that some teams may not want to, risk paying a guy like that. But then, there's some other teams, but obviously I don't know because Austin Matthews might not want to go to one of these lower teams that want to pay him. Maybe he wants to go to a contender team or something. But yeah, truth be told, I can't tell you what exactly I'm thinking right now because, maybe Toronto wants to keep him, maybe, but obviously there'll be discussions around with him and decide his future then. But right now, I officially can't tell you what I believe will happen.
Yeah, well, personally, Jakob, my thoughts are a little different. I actually think that the Toronto Maple Leafs, well, I think Austin Matthews will move on from the Leafs come the end of his deal because, like you said, he's had that, individual success, but the Leafs haven't shown him, really any hope of going anywhere. And yeah, I don't think that this player is happy with his situation in Toronto right now, and especially after losing Marner and now having missed the playoffs. Say goodbye to your chapter in Toronto. Come, I don't know when his contract's up, but well, we shall see. But I do know it's not this season, so he will be a Leaf next season, barring a major trade, which personally I don't think will happen. But
No,
yeah,
definitely not.
but yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything else to say regarding all this, or do you want to
No,
move
I'm
on?
right. Let's move on.
All right. Oh, by the way, Jakob, when we're looking at the standings, I did see that the Panthers are tied in points with the Leafs, but the only reason the Panthers are not currently out is because they still have an extra game in hand. So they could still
Yeah,
technically make it, but let's be honest, they will not make it this year. Which,
definitely
sorry,
not.
Florida. Well, actually, not sorry because I don't feel bad for you guys. You guys, won back-to-back cups and missing the playoffs 1 year is not a big deal. But on that note, Jakob, obviously, we will do our spin the wheel to decide who is going to be taking which game. And do you want me to spin for you first or spin for me first?
You could spin for me first.
All right, which I will close these real quick. Which for Iacob, I will spin, and he gets the Flyers. I guess the Flyers love to have us recap them. So you will be doing. Okay, so you'll be going first then on the day,
Okay.
which I will erase the. If I can find them, where are the Flyers? The Flyers and their opponent was yesterday the
The
Detroit
Red
Red
Wings.
Wings, which I will eliminate them from the wheel as well. And obviously, because Jakob and I go back and forth, I have to get a team that does not overlap. So we will see if the team that I spin, is a game that I can recap or not. But we will find out. But oh, that'd be so funny if it was the Leafs. The Tampa Bay Lightning, which that does in fact work. We can work with that.
All right. Well, I guess I'm going first. And the first game on the schedule yesterday saw the team that I picked for my pick of the day. The apparently according to according to this, the Ottawa Senators were heavy favorites, and clearly they showed why they were the heavy favorites as they beat the Buffalo Sabres 4-1 yesterday. And the winning goalie was Linus Olmark, and the game-winning goal was scored by Lars Eller.
Yeah, no, good for the Sens, and I'll move on, and I guess I'm doing a very early full recap. I don't even get ready for this, but it is what it is. But obviously, as you guys can see, the Tampa Bay Lightning defeat the Pittsburgh Penguins 6-3, and with that, the Sorelli gets a hat trick, and the Lightning defeat Penguins to reach 100 points in the standings. And obviously, the Lightning outshot the Penguins 33-24, but Kucherov had 3 points for Tampa Bay, which moves into first in the Atlantic, and Chinakhov scores two for the Penguins, which obviously we know Chinakhov has been very good since arriving in Pittsburgh. But your 3 stars of the game. Well, oh, what am I doing? You guys didn't hear nothing. Uh, your first goal of this game, because we'll go over your goal scores, came 5 minutes into the first period, and that would be Anthony Cirelli with his first of 3 on the night, and Gage Goncalves would get an assist on this one. But obviously, the Penguins don't go away like that. Oh, excuse me. Ricard Raquel scores 2 minutes later to nod the game at 1, and that would be assisted by Samuel Girard, the former Av, and Chris Letang, the longtime Penguin. But then Igor Chinakhov, with his first of the night, would score to give the Penguins their first lead with less than 4 minutes left in the first period, and that would come on a backhand shot assisted by Brian Rust and Sam Girard with his second assist on the night. But obviously, we move into the second period where Anthony Cirelli, short-handed just 11 seconds into the period, would tie the game at 2. And from here on out, it was all Tampa, and the Penguins could not recover. But he would score on a backhand shot of his own to show Igor Chinakhov, what's up. And yeah, unassisted. But obviously, we go a while without a goal. And with under 6 minutes left in the second period, not the third period, sorry, Braden Point would score his 18th, assisted by Jake Gunsel and Nikita Kucherov. And that would come off of a wrist shot. And then Zemgus Girgensons in the final minute would score a backhand shot for his ninth of the season. And this would stand as the game winner, but he would make the game 4-2, and that would be assisted by Yanni Gord and Ryan McDonough. But then, moving into the third period, Nikita Kucherov would have to get on the board himself with his 41st, assisted by Charles Edouard Destus and Jake Gunsel. Then Cirelli would obviously bury an empty netter, which the Penguins pulled their goalie very early with just under 4.5 on the clock. Cirelli would, make the game 6-2, assisted by Gage Goncalves and Kucherov for his third point of the night. And then Chinakhov would get one back with 2 seconds left on the power play, assisted by Letang and Mantha. But ultimately, that doesn't change the result of the game. All it really does is it just delayed the inevitable, and they had to take an extra face-off at center ice. But good game by the Lightning, and obviously we'll go over the 3 stars now, which I almost spoiled. But your 3 stars on the night: Anthony Cirelli with his hat trick, no surprise, is your first star. Nikita Kucherov with his goal and 2 assists for 3 points is your second star. And Zemgus Girgensons with his single goal is your third star of the night, which, by the way, that was actually the game winner. But we'll move on to the goaltending performances, which for the Pittsburgh Penguins, it was Stuart Skinner, and he allowed 5 on 32, which, yes, the Lightning scored 6, but the last goal was an empty netter. And he would have an 844 save percentage on the night, which Yikes, to be honest. And then for the Lightning, it would be Andrei Vasilevsky, who also wouldn't have the greatest performance at an 875, but he allowed 3 on 24, and yeah, the Lightning get the win in this one. And then, of course, for your season series, which with this win, the Lightning actually take the season series because they were knotted up at 1, but now we see, obviously, the Penguins won the first match 4-3 on December 4th. The Lightning won the second match on January 13th, 2-1 in a shootout, which that game was only 3 days after we started our podcast, by the way, Iacob. So that was very early on. And if you guys want to go watch that recap, go check out I guess, one of our first videos. I don't even know. We weren't even doing YouTube then. It was only Spotify at that point.
That is
Wow.
true, yeah.
Wow. But yeah. And then, of course, on the last game here, which this is the last game between these two on the season, and the Lightning would take it 6-3, obviously. And there you have it, folks. The Lightning take this one 6-3, and yeah, great performance by them. And I mean, they definitely deserve this win.
All right, we'll move on to the next game, which sees the Boston Bruins visiting the Florida Panthers. With Florida Panthers could be eliminated if they lose, but unfortunately for us, we will see them another day as Florida wins this one 2-1. And the winning goalie was Sergei Bobrovsky, and the game-winning goal was scored by Mr. Canada Sam Bennett.
Truth be told, we know that the Panthers are not making the playoffs, but it still grinds my gears a little bit to see them, even just stay alive for another day. And I hope that they get eliminated today. I don't even know if that's possible based off of the schedule for today, but that is one thing I didn't pull up, Jakob. I didn't pull up the daily face-off starting goaltenders, but I'll worry about that shortly. But moving on to our next match, which this is before Jakob will do his full recap, we see the Montreal Canadiens visit the New York Rangers, and obviously they would take this one 3-2, as we would see Jacob Fowler, make allow 2 goals and get the win for his team. And Cole Caulfield did get 2 goals in this game, with which Jakob, spoiler alert, you were right. You did make a prediction on that, right? I think so. Anyways, I don't know if Jakob's alive, but yeah, there you have it, folks. The Canadians win this one 3-2, and Jakob, it's your turn.
And we will see the next game, which sees the Detroit Red Wings beat the Philadelphia Flyers despite being outshot 34-19. And Patrick Kane has 3 points. And DeBrincat gets 2 goals for Detroit, and Foster scores in his return for Philadelphia. But we'll go over the goal scorers real quick, which Alex DeBrincat scores on the power play in the first period to make it 1-0 for Detroit. Then we go into the second period where Ty Forster, in his return back to action after missing a few weeks, I believe, or months with injury, would score 31 seconds in to tie the game. Lucas Raymond would make it 2-1 for Detroit on an assist from Comfort and Edvinson to make it 2-1. And then Patrick Kane would score what would be the game-winning goal to make it 3-1 in the third period, 9 minutes and 37 seconds in. And just a few seconds after that, Travis Konechny would put one back for the Philadelphia Flyers on an assist from Martone and Dvorak for Martone's first career point. And then Alex DeBrincat would obviously score another goal 10 minutes and 44 seconds in, 15 seconds after that. Travis Konechny goal and would make it 4-2 on assist from Kopp and Kane. And no goals were scored by Philadelphia after that, unfortunately. But the 3 stars of the game, Alex DeBrincat was the first star with 2 goals and 2 points. Martone in his first game was the second star with an assist for his first career point. And then Patrick Kane was the third star with 3 points. And we'll go over the goalie performances real quick. But for the Red Wings, it was John Gibson who allowed 2 on the 34 he faced for a 941 save percentage. And for the Philadelphia Flyers, it was Samuel Urson who allowed 4 on 19 for a
Yikes.
789 save percentage. And the season series is actually tied between these two teams. They met on March 28th, so just a few days prior to this episode, or prior to yesterday's game, excuse me. And Philadelphia would win that one. And then they go into Philadelphia, where Detroit would take this one. And then the last game, which will be played a week from yesterday's game, we'll be back in Detroit and we will see how that game goes. But yeah, that is all for the recap of the Detroit Philadelphia game. Kyle, take it away.
Jeez, Jakob. Yeah, you're in a rush, I see.
Bro, I have to be at at the place by 6 p.m. So I gotta rush my shit quickly.
Ah, yes. Well, okay, that makes sense. I understand, but they made me want to say Poppy chill, just like, Puck Empire said regarding
Yeah,
Austin
yeah,
Matthews.
yeah.
Ha ha
Poppy
ha.
chill. I cannot chill, unfortunately. Not today.
All right, well, we'll rush this along a little bit, but in our next matchup, we see the Blue Jackets visit the Hurricanes, and the Hurricanes on home ice would get the better of the Blue Jackets 5-1. And speak of the devil himself, Frederick Anderson obviously gets the win after only allowing one goal, and then Logan Stankoven would score the second goal for the Canes, which would stand as the game winner. And there you have it, 5-1 Canes. Excuse me.
And the next game sees the Washington Capitals travel to New Jersey to face off against the Devils. And this was a tough game for me in fantasy because Logan Thompson absolutely crapped the bed. I'm sorry to say that, but he did because he allowed seven. And New Jersey ended up winning this one 7-3. And the winning goalie was Jake Allen, and the game-winning goal scored by, I swear, I always talk about this guy, Mr. USA himself, Jack Hughes.
Yeah, I don't know what's up with that, Jakob. I feel like you mention him every single episode for some
I
reason.
swear, I feel like I have.
I don't know. Maybe one day we'll fact check that. If there is a viewer who watches all our episodes and wants to confirm that, if you guys do know, feel free and let us know in the comment section down below. But in our next matchup, we see the Jets go and visit the Stars, where the Stars obviously are the Stars, and they blank the Jets 3-0 on home ice. And Jake Ottinger would record a shutout, and Matt Duchene would score the first goal, which would stand as the game winner.
Performance by the Dallas Stars, but we'll move on to the other team in that Stars, division, and that would be the Minnesota Wild would host the Vancouver Canucks. And the unfortunately, the Vancouver Canucks could not beat the second best team in the league. They beat the first, but not the best. As Minnesota would take this one 5-2 in Quinn Hughes' first game against the Canucks against his former team, excuse me, and Minnesota would win this one 5-2, and Philip Gustafson would be the winning goalie, and Kirill Kaprizov would be the game-winning goal.
Very good. And for a game I watched, and it was a pretty excellent game, but obviously Jakob and I are short on time, or I guess Jakob's short on time, so I won't go too far in depth in this one. But the Oilers on home ice hosting the Chicago Blackhawks would win 3-1 in what was honestly a pretty good game, and it felt like playoff atmosphere to a degree. But yeah, the Oilers have been playing better as of late, but Tristan Jarry would get the win after allowing only one goal, and then Matt Savoy would obviously score the game winner in a game where the Oilers absolutely dominated the Hawks despite what the score says.
Has been on fire recently for Edmonton. I think prior to the Olympic, but after the Olympic breaks, he's just been on a whole other level. And Evan Bouchard, same with him. So it's good to
Mm-hmm.
see that finally our players are, maybe the Olympic break was exactly what we needed to, grind and yeah. But we'll move on to the next game, which sees the Calgary Flames, the Edmonton's biggest rival, visit the Vegas Golden Knights, and Vegas would actually win this one 6-3. And Carter Hart would be the winning goalie, and Howden would score the game-winning goal.
Hardly a rival if they're at the bottom of the league, am I right? Ah, ha, ha,
Well,
ha.
of course, of course.
Nah, they are unironically our rival, and yeah, obviously, I mean it's always more fun when both teams are good and they get to face off in the playoffs. But maybe soon, we'll see. But in our next matchup, we see the Leafs, where they got eliminated, of course, after their 4-1 loss to the Sharks yesterday. And if they had won, they would have remained alive. But spoiler alert, which I'm sure you guys can already tell, they did not win. And Alex Nedeljkovic would get the win after allowing only one Toronto goal. And Colin Graff, who has been spectacular for the Sharks this season, scores the game winner. And yeah, that's all I have to say regarding that.
Yeah, we move on to this game, which sees the Utah Mammoth visiting the Seattle Kraken, and Utah would get the better of this one 6-2 over Seattle. And Karol Vechmelko would be the winning goalie, and Kyle's pick for Nick Schmaltz to score a goal hit as Nick Schmaltz would score the
Mm-hmm.
game-winning goal.
Look at me go. And you know what? For this last game, I'll recap the shootout just because it won't take that long. But the Predators would beat the Kings 5-4, and obviously UC Saros would get the win as this was a good game. Obviously, the Preds had a big lead at one point, and they just about blew it. But Luke Evangelista would get the shootout winner, and we would see Adrian Kempe score the first. Or whoa, what am I talking about? He would not score the first one as he would go in and miss. O'Reilly would miss his first shot. Panarin would miss the. Oh my goodness gracious! What in the world,
Bro, there
bro?
was eight rounds, bro.
Well, anyways, there was 8 rounds, and obviously for the Predators, I guess for both teams, the goaltenders came up spectacular, and it was only when Luca Evangelista managed to squeak one past the LA goaltender that it was finally done. And wow, that's
No, for
unreal.
real.
I cannot believe that. And on that note, there's your recap for the day. And Jakob, I have to pull up the daily faceoff starting goaltenders. So daily faceoff starting goaltenders. All right, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to rock and roll, bruh. Which
Hey, I'm ready when you are.
which we will do what we always do, where I will say the NHL starting or the what am I talking about? I will say the teams that are playing and the time that the games start, and Jakob will say the NHL starting goaltenders. So for our first matchup, which will come at 5 o'clock Mountain Time, 6 p.m. Central Time, and 7 p.m. Eastern Time, we see the Philadelphia Flyers visit the New York Islanders, and this is a very important game in that Eastern Conference playoff race.
And we will see Dan Vladar versus Ilya Sorokin.
And for our final of two games, which you can actually see both of them on the screen, which this is quite beautiful. And you guys will get a full recap from us tomorrow. But in our second and final match at 8 o'clock Mountain Time, 9 p.m. Central Time, and 10 p.m. Eastern Time, we have the St. Louis Blues who will visit the Anaheim Ducks.
Unfortunately, for the only game goalie that's not confirmed, but Joe Hofer is projected to get the start tonight, and then Lucas Dostal will get the start for the Anaheim Ducks tonight.
Mm-hmm. And there you have it, folks. These are obviously your starting goaltenders and the only two games. So you guys will obviously, like I said, get a full recap tomorrow. And I'm just looking. Oh, yeah, we forgot to speak about wait, where's my mouse? Oh my gosh. We forgot about the talk about the fact that the Blues signed Colin Ralph.
Well, yeah, that was the he signed to a 3-year contract.
Yes, the St. Louis Blues locked up one of their draft picks. He signed a 3-year entry level deal, so I'm not pulling up his stats or nothing. There you have it, folks. That is everything. But yeah, I
All
guess
right.
before we wrap this up, which I will let Jakob do the outro today, but I will,
Picks of the day. Where's our picks of the day, buddy?
I'm jumping ahead of myself. Okay, well, Jakob, I'll just pull up the schedule for today and wait, what were our picks of the day yesterday? Do you remember what you picked?
I remembered mine. I do not remember yours though. So
Okay, I remember some of my picks. So to recap my picks from yesterday, which do. All right, well obviously I picked a Nick Schmaltz goal, which that did hit, and
uh-huh.
for my other player pick, oh brother, who did I think I chose a Kirill Marchenko point, which I don't know if that hit, so we will check real quick. Which, oh my god, the Blue Jackets only had 10 shots. Kirill Marchenko did not get a point, so I'm 1 for 2 so far. And for my team picks, I picked the Canucks to beat the Wild, which, yeah, that looked pretty bad, I'm not gonna lie. And then I picked the Panthers to beat the Bruins, which obviously did not happen, so I went 1 for 4 on the day. And what did you pick, Jakob?
You actually went 2 for 4.
I did?
Yeah, you got Nick Schmaltz right, and then you got the Panthers
Oh!
right.
I said the Bruins to beat the Panthers, sorry, because I thought the Bruins were gonna eliminate the Panthers from playoff contention.
Okay, and I actually went 3 for 4 yesterday. As my only pick that did not hit was that I predicted a Tage Thompson goal, which unfortunately that one did not hit. I predicted a Senators win over the Sabres, which that one did hit. I predicted a Nashville win over the LA Kings, which that one hit. And then I
Mm-hmm.
predicted a Cole Caulfield goal, which fortunately for me, that one hit too. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess since I want to go first since I had the better record, but I am actually going to take the St. Louis Blues to beat the Anaheim Ducks tonight. I've already, I'm actually thinking about, maybe tuning in a little bit to watching that game. So maybe you guys will have a full game prediction from me. But for my player pick of the day, I'm going to take a Jordan Kyrou point for the St. Louis Blues.
All right. And then, you know what? I'm going to go to the opposite game because, I mean, it only makes sense, right?
Well, obviously, yeah.
And I'm actually going to take the Philadelphia Flyers to get their redemption for their loss yesterday. So I will take the Flyers to beat the Islanders, and I'm going to take a Braden Shen goal for the Islanders.
Okay, well, there you have it, folks. Kyle took the Flyers to beat the Islanders and a Braden Shen goal, and I predicted the Blues to beat the Ducks and a Jordan Kyrou point. So with that being said, Kyle, I'm ready to do the outro if you're ready.
Well, before you do the outro, Go check out our Spotify, which Jakob will also post the episode on there today. So if you guys are still sticking around and have stuck around to this point, you know what? Comment the words "big men." Why?
Okay.
Why big men? Because I looked at my playlist here called "Big Men Vibes." No other reason.
All right. That's
And
perfect.
of course, go check out our Instagram too, which obviously it is also IK NHL Daily Talk. And please, if you did enjoy the video today, oh my gosh, I don't have it pulled up on the channel. I always forget something, whether it's big or minor or what. But yeah, please be sure to leave a like on our video and of course subscribe if you did enjoy. So yeah, on that note, Jakob, wrap it up.
All right. Thank you to everyone who listened, who watched, who who like our episodes. Tune in tomorrow for another episode of IK NHL Daily Talk. And yeah, I hope everyone has a great day, and we will see you all tomorrow with another episode of IK NHL Daily Talk. This is Jakob, Aaron, and Kyle Slinchuk signing out for the night. Peace out, everyone. We will see you all tomorrow.
Peace out. Have a great weekend, y'all.